Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose. Court. The leader of the Phantom Thieves was incarcerated following an attempted casino heist. Public prosecutor Saint Regina conducted an interrogation into this curious now imprisoned rogue. Recounting the events of the past, she discovered that our protagonist was sued for defending a woman from a violent man and put onto probation. Being expelled from school and with no place to call home, he was sent to live with Sugiro Sakura in his coffee shop in Tokyo. But strange events started occurring upon his arrival in the form of a mysterious app on Floor's phone, which he was unable to delete, as well as a strange velvet prison. Following a rocky introduction to his new school of Shujin Academy, he and a bystander found themselves in a strange alternate version of the academy itself. We leave our characters having been knocked out by large armored villains. Their location unknown.
Just try it!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, our protagonists find themselves locked up within the castle, alongside Sakamoto, a person who is tormented by the strange king fellow. An awakening in the most dire of circumstances allows us to hold back the king and his soldiers, so that we may escape with our newfound ally. During our escape, we encounter a strange monster who calls himself Morgana, who adamantly fights back that they're definitely not a cat. For his freedom, Morgana agrees to help the two escape the castle and make their way back to the real world. Dealing with the fallout from his late arrival at school, our protagonists formally meet up with Sakamoto, finding out that their name is Ryuji. The next day, Ryuji tries to find a way to enter this strange world again, because he recognizes the king as Kamoshida, someone who he greatly distrusts. Using the strange app known as the Metaverse Navigator, gifted to us by Iger, we're able to travel to the other world and re-enter the castle. Morgana agrees to assist us, as long as we help them regain their true form. He explains that this strange world is a palace, created by Kamoshida subconsciously. With Ryuji's reasons for hating Kamoshida still unknown, the three continue their descent into this strange, twisted metaphor. Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, Joker and Ryuji continue their journey through Kamoshida's castle. They encounter a physical torture chamber for Kamoshida's volleyball students. Following a lot of explanation to Ryuji, we identify these students are actually imaginary, thus we do not need to save them. With this newfound information, we escape the castle, only to be stopped by Kamoshida, who puts Joker and Morgana to the ground. Ryuji, in a fit of desperation, pulls off his own mask and awakens to Chariot. With his newfound power, we flee the castle, vowing to take down this Memento. After leaving Morgana quite literally in the dust, Ryuji and Joker go about finding Kamoshida's victims in the real world. However, following a few failed interrogations, we are stopped by Anne, a foreign exchange student who is in a relationship with Kamoshida. Anne explains that there is very little we can do in our situation, and following an interrogation with Mishima, we finally understand the gravity of the situation. With a dead end reached, the two try to find some other way to breach the castle that Kamoshida has built around himself.
Yes, I'm the best!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, after a day of school, Morgana shows up in the real world as a real cat. He explains that we can defeat Kamoshida in the castle, stripping him of his desires, which could also mentally destroy him. Looking for any other way first, we follow Anne out of school after seeing her distressed. Sitting down with her, we find out she is being forced to stay with Kamoshida. Stopping her from going back to his place, the consequences are felt the next day, with Shiho attempting to take her own life. Anne, seeking justice for her friend, follows us into Kamoshida's castle, where she is kidnapped by the otherworld version of Kamoshida. We find out that because Anne didn't stay with Kamoshida that night, that Kamoshida forced himself on Shiho instead, leading to that horrific event at school. Filled with anger, Anne snaps and triggers her persona, giving us a new ally. However, we quickly retreat when we find out how winded she is. With the threat of being expelled in the next few weeks because of Kamoshida, the three set about their plans to steal his treasure, so that he may admit to his own crimes, even at the cost of his own life. Morgana helps us prepare and decides to stay with us at the coffee shop, something that Sajiro eventually agrees with. The countdown has started to stop Kamoshida's damaging path on the school.
Ready to go!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose. First order of business was to do a reconnaissance on our map, identifying landmarks and points of interest. Following this, Joker, Skull, and Mona, and the newly appointed Panther continued their trek through Kamoshida's castle. We awakened to new powers inside through Persona Fusion, as well as advice from Morgana on how to be a better thief. With agile feet and a quick-thinking mind, we make our way deeper still. Unlocking each door leads us closer to the treasure. Can we get it all done in one day? Find out in this episode of Persona 5 Royal Rose.
All set!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose. A shadowy, twisted reflection of Kamoshida's psyche is further encountered through hideous secret passageways and a sacrilegious altar to the abysmal man. Morgana teaches us of will seeds, strange hidden objects which coalesce to distortion in each palace. We collect all three and attain a powerful healing ability. Alongside this, we encounter several roadblocks in the way of stronger enemies and devious traps. The closer we get to the treasure, the more dangerous things become. Eventually, though, we achieve victory and find the treasure itself. However, the treasure has no physical form, similar to Desire itself. The only way to make it physical is by giving the real Kamoshida a calling card. Then and only then can we confront this twisted individual. With the infiltration route secured, we prepare for the final encounter.
They felt that one!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose. Ryuji puts in some time on getting our calling card together, which does all it was intended to do, even if it was a little bit underwhelming for some. With the treasure realized, we return to the palace to claim our spoils. The treasure turns out to be a large crown, likely a metaphor for Kamoshida thinking he's the king of the Morgana, what the hell are you doing? However, Kamoshida intervenes before we can escape and transforms into a creature as hideous as his mind. With Morgana's help, we successfully retrieve the crown from his head and retreat from the castle, having succeeded in lobotomizing Kamoshida. The next day, it is revealed that Kamoshida took the day off. As well as this, there is talks he is planning to suspend himself. With a silver lining finally gracing us, we spend the next day getting wait, what? As well as hanging out with our new mentor, Sajiro, in this cafe. I love this dude. With everything seemingly going our way, we can now sit back and enjoy our remaining 3 days.
Ah! Lame!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose. With Kamoshida's change of heart uncertain until the board meeting, we spend the next 2 weeks taking care of a few errands. We meet with Ryuji and help him train with his bad leg. However, we also end up meeting his former track team friends, who give him a lot of shit for ending their careers. We continue helping Takemi with her research, drinking more and more strange experimental concoctions. However, following a visit with the police, everything doesn't seem quite right. Alongside our part-time work at 777, we also get some training from Sajiro, who teaches us how to be a proper coffee curry barista. We watch movies, programs, and read books, all to improve our stats, which will be crucial for our thorough social development. However, the weight of the unknown concerning Kamoshida lies over us like a long shadow. With these unknowns keeping us anxious, we can only wait until the board meeting.
Crap, no good!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose. Kamoshida admits to his crimes in front of everyone during morning assembly, with Anne convincing him to hand himself to the police. With this awful man behind bars, the group decides to celebrate. However, first they must work out what to do with the treasure they pick up. It's decided that they'll sell the treasure to our pseudo-gun dealer, which leads to another encounter with the Fuzz and a strange bag. Afterwards, we spend our money at a fancy hotel restaurant, eating all manner of foods, including beans for Morgana. Everything seems to be going great until we realize through eavesdropping that the higher-ups in Tokyo are awful, greedy people. With the group realizing they could do more good in the world, they decide to officially become thieves, known as the Royal Roses. We even have a website created by Mishima, one of the people we helped. However, the true test lies ahead of us now, the midterm exams. We prepare for our next big target, as well as for our exams.
Let her rip!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, with the midterm exams hanging over us like a descending sun, we start working towards getting our knowledge to rank 2. Alongside this, we finally sit down and have a dinner with our girlfriend, Anne, as well as speaking to our potential new girlfriend, Makoto, who's investigating the sudden change of heart in Kamoshida. With some time before the exams, Morgana shows us Mementos, the palace of everyone who isn't a plot pivotal bad guy. To get around these subterranean tunnels, Morgana turns into a car. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. We realize that we can use these tunnels to handle smaller problems in the world, and with the help of Mishima, we can use his website to handle requests, such as taking out stalking City Hall employees or toxic bullies. We also meet face-to-face with the Reaper, who teaches us about Memento Mori. And now, Flower can confirm we will see the midterm exams this episode. Definitely.
Let's do this, Joker!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, we finally take our midterm exams across a 3-day period. However, a sudden afternoon assembly causes a shift in our schedules. We are introduced to Takuta Maruki, a surprisingly kind counselor with a penchant for handing out snacks. He asks for our help, listening to his theories about the metaphorical heart. In return, we will receive a mental training and presence, increasing our max SP. The next day, Anne finds herself being stalked by someone, a curious individual called Yusuke Kitagawa, who wishes to paint Anne. What we find curious is the individual called Ishiyuse Madarami, an older artist who took on Yusuke and a number of other apprentices before. Following a visit to his art exhibit and using his website, we identify that Madarami might be plagiarizing his own students. Visiting Yusuke at Madarami's home, we find out that he is lying to protect his master, since Madarami took him in as a child following his mother's death. However, Madarami cannot be left alone, as we also find out that he led to one of his students committing suicide. Despite Yusuke's really quite questionable blackmail, we are determined to delve into Madarami's palace to protect the future of these prosperous artists and save them from further plagiarism.
Let's heat things up!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, Madarami's palace, a place filled with infrared sensors and many lasers. Morgana, in fact, ends up getting stuck in a laser after sniffing out a golden vase. After we disengage the traps, we find out the golden vase was actually a monster, a special monster which can empower our personas. Eventually we reach an impasse, a barrier that must be opened from the other side. Morgana identifies the door is also there in the real world in Madarami's shack. Thus, we return, and Anne goes through a very clever act to get close to that door. Through circumstances, Anne, Morgana, and Yusuke end up inside. They uncover that Madarami's been lying about having lost his famous painting, but before Madarami can call the cops, we all escape into the palace. After being a little overwhelmed, Yusuke agrees to flee with us from the palace, where they are confronted by the shadow version of Madarami, who reveals that they prefer art as a means to get wealth and fame, rather than actual creative pursuit. Yusuke, heartbroken and betrayed, awakens to their persona and takes it upon himself to fight against Madarami alongside us. With Madarami threatening us with lawyers, we face actual jail time, and therefore, we must change his heart before the art exhibit ends.
Ha! Nice!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose. Following Yusuke's declaration to help us take down Madarami, we strive further into this paint-infested maze, encountering numerous traps, including a maze of claustrophobic infrared lasers, and strange paintings which allow us to enter and move between them. Following this, we enter an MC Escher-looking world made of gold, and identify hidden walls in the real version of Madarami's famous painting. Eventually, we find the villain's den of desires under tight security. but perhaps through some careful crane movement and expertise, we may be able to sneak away the treasure right under Madarame's nose.
That sucked.
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, with a plan of extraction hoisted and prepared, we set the lights, camera, and action for the main event. However, upon our escape from Madarame's palace, we discovered the treasure we picked up was actually a fake. Madarame reveals to Yusuke that he wasn't the one who painted Sayuri, it was Yusuke's mother, as a memento for her son to remember her by. Adding salt to the wound, Madarame states that he allowed Yusuke's mother to die, watching her die from a seizure and choosing not to help her. Filled with newfound determination, Yusuke helps us defeat Madarame. After a grueling battle, he put him in his place and got the change we wanted. However, to see the real change, we would have to wait and see by the time the art exhibit rolls around. In the interim, we ate burgers and became the Big Smart. Also, Ryuji set out a plan to hire a maid with an empty apartment in his flat. Mishima and us join him, only to find out that the maid was actually... Wait, what? Kawakami-san? No!
What? Seriously?
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, we spend our free time before the legal action of our friends, helping Ryuji of the track team and Anne with her woes of the heart. Additionally, we unfortunately hang out with Mishima multiple times. Dude has that Junpei attitude, also he judges people. On the 30th of May, we spend the day doing some litter picking in the local park. As some damage control from our school after the Kamoshida incident, we end up spending a bunch of time with Samir Yoshizawa, an honor student who is surprisingly agile and nice after talking to her for a bit. Following our positive duties, we hang out with a few more people, our barista dad, our maid mum, and our political grandpa. I don't know what I'm doing. It's difficult to write recaps for the free time stuff. Anyway, we're only a day out from finding out if Madarame has had a change of heart.
Awaiting orders, Joker.
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, the Phantom Thieves hit big as Madarame makes a press conference where he confesses his crimes with many regrets and tears. We've now hit the mainstream, which means being more careful, as the grouping of prior victims can be seen as a smidge suspicious. Meanwhile, a sneaky investigator of her own continues following us. Makoto, having been manipulated by the headmaster, continues watching us. Ryuji takes us to Kikigoji neighborhood to show us all the shops, as well as taking us out for some darts to improve our baton pass. What? We take a few more Confidant meetings and take the prison wardens, Caroline and Justine, out for a burger. We also take Kasumi to the station with an umbrella during the rain. However, it is time to pick our next target, and as Morgana alludes to, we might find someone at our social studies field trip while visiting the TV station.
Such power!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, on our social studies trip, we are introduced to the character of Goro Akeshi, a prospering high school detective who ended up on this talk show. He speaks to us, the Phantom Thieves, and how we do not work in the name of justice. With some points falling a little too close to home, we consider what he says but end up deciding to continue thieving anyway. After some pancakes, Yusuke decides to leave his school dorms. We decide he can live with us and form a welcome party. Backstories are told of us and Ryuji going into a little bit about ourselves, including the awful man who gave us our criminal record in the first place. Yusuke decides not to live with us, but leave behind Sayuri as a memento. The next day, while deliberating who to tackle next, we are suddenly brought in by Makoto, who reveals key evidence. She knows we're the Phantom Thieves and wishes to put our justice to the test. After forcing the group together, we are told of our next target, a mafia found within Shibuya. We must deal with them in 2 weeks or Makoto will release her evidence. This might also be the break the Phantom Thieves need, as we may grow in popularity after dealing with public villains such as the mafia.
Ha! Right on target!
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, with Makoto's dire request hanging over us, we do some investigating. We find out, with the help from Anne, that some students are involved in the mafia. delivering sealed envelopes in the streets of Shibuya for a large payout. Albeit they are unaware the packages they are delivering are actually drugs. We spend the next day hunting around Shibuya for these transactions, where we learn very little information due to the sudden arrival of Makoto. As it turns out, Makoto is struggling with her sense of purpose. She feels useless to her sister and wants to help out where she can. This eventually lands her in trouble when she tries to help us. Makoto, having found out the name of the boss from us, seeks out the Mafia. We chase after her and end up in the presence of the Mafia leader, Kaneshiro, who threatens us with a debauchery image. Unless we can bring him 3 million yen in 3 weeks, he will release the image. After rescuing Makoto, we alleviate some of her concern and ask her for help, as we discover Kaneshiro's palace is a bank on the streets of Shibuya. With Makoto and us being technically his customers, we are led to his floating palace and prepare for our first transaction.
Are you ready?
Previously on Persona 5 Royal Rose, making our transaction proves more difficult than expected. With a seemingly endless supply of foot soldiers, we make our escape from the bank. However, Kaneshiro stops us and continues his threats towards Makoto and her family. She's had enough and awakens to her persona, the driving license persona. We soon return to the palace, making our way through with keycards and elevators, eventually arriving at a 2-key safe where we put Makoto's brain to the test, since apparently she's the only one with a brain cell in our party. The rest of the palace proves to be a cakewalk, or I guess a muddy walk in this case. We bully some enemies and make our way to the vault, a colossal room designed like a safe lock mechanism. After bypassing all the walls, we finally arrive at the treasure. With our treasure route secured, we prepare to send a calling card. I can't believe this 6-hour episode of one of the shortest recaps